Okay, so we're just going to do the platform updates to start with, just to give a little hint of what's been going on. We was hoping to have a couple more platform updates to actually reveal, but we've actually had a number of dev cycles get taken up with. Effectively, there's a component that we use that's supplied by a third party, and we've actually discovered a couple of bugs in that. So our dev teams with the dev teams for that product have sort of got distracted. So not quite the level of updates we was hoping for, but we've still got some. So to start off with, just wanted to highlight something to you that you might have noticed or you might not. So this is specific to customers that use the TMS. Okay, so the training management system, so the Skillable LMS platform. One of the things we've started doing is we've started harvesting our data and cleaning up our data warehouse. So one of the key things that's changed is there is a find lab instances report, especially if I was to spell lab correctly on the slide. That's a real sort of own goal there. Let's just fix that. And that allows you to look at sort of every lab that a user's run, and you can actually drill into the details and see things like if it's got activities where people can have their work graded, you can see the scores, those sort of things. Effectively, for lab instances that are now over 2 years old, you'll notice the details option has gone. The details data is still available in Studio, okay, but in the TMS, we're just sort of closing the database down a little bit, cleaning it up, making it more efficient. So just to be aware that if you look for that detailed data for events over 2 years ago, that it's not available from TMS anymore. Okay. Next thing that's changed recently in the platform is the way we do, or a feature we've got as far as our SCORM packager. So a lot of people would remember from a previous lab developer workshop, we demonstrated a feature called the SCORM packager. So if you've got your own LMS and you didn't want to get involved in things like API integration and things, you can download effectively a lab into a SCORM package. You can then basically put that into your LMS, and what actually happens is when you run that, it then actually contacts us and initiates the lab. So effectively it becomes a really easy way to integrate an external LMS to launch Skillable Studio labs. The way this used to work, and still does work, is by default, it reads the user information from the LMS using the SCORM features. So basically pulls out things like the user's first name and their last name and so on. Okay. So the idea being now is if you download the SCORM package component, okay, we now have a new tick box for a normalized launch. So effectively, if you don't want us to have the username, so the user's first name, the user's last name, and so on, then by ticking that box, that will just update the API call so that you won't send across the user's identity to us. So in scenarios where people are very sort of focused on PII and things along those lines, that can be a really useful feature. So you would need to re-download the package because it's changing the way the package works and so on. Okay. Yeah, obviously, Andrew, any problems with getting it working or whatever, let us know. We did do an update, depending when it was last working, we did an update, I think it was at the end of September or the beginning of October, and we changed the security in there. So downloads that sort of happened sort of early September and August wouldn't work anymore. We actually done the security. Yeah, absolutely. So basically, you need to download again. Lifecycle action. So this isn't in the platform yet. It's meant to be on the next push to production. Okay, but just to give you a little sort of highlight in terms of something that's coming. So I think this might even be. I think it's the 7th. So I think it's the Thursday next week when this is happening. Okay. So let me just jump across into here. I'm just going to pick on a lab profile that I've got. So for those that attended January's lab developer workshop, you would know we spent quite a bit, well, we spent a lot of time looking at the script library. And one of the things that we looked at as part of the script library was we talked about the fact that we've got this build with Copilot capability. And we've also got this new user interface. If I just pick a script from the library so that I've got something, we've got this new user interface. So effectively, you've got this sort of box where you can move stuff backwards and forwards. You can actually see things like the original script next to the script you're modifying and all those sort of things. So we've got this user interface. Okay, but all those people that attended the January Lab Developer Workshop would remember that when you look at a lab profile and you looked at a life cycle action, so let's add a life cycle action in here, it wasn't quite the same. So the first thing was there was no Copilot, so there was no ability to get AI to write your scripts for you here. And the other thing, if I pick a script from the script library, okay, this actual UI was different, so this isn't adjustable, this is fixed. If you want to go and edit the scripts, you lose all the guidance. So because all the script is back here, that's where the guidance is and things. So effectively, the UI when editing lifecycle actions is going to match the user interface that we have for activities. Okay, so this user interface is going to be replaced, and the Copilot's coming, so you can get artificial intelligence to write the content for you as well, so it can write the scripts. So that's just coming pretty soon. So I just wanted to sort of highlight that so that you know that when the UI does go and change. So that's those couple of bits. Next thing, so this is a big thing for some of you. Okay, some of you will be aware that Google Chrome, certainly initially, is going to be blocking third-party cookies, full stop. Okay, so any website that uses third-party cookies is not going to work as I think it's actually during April or May that these versions of Chrome are going to start to be the current releases and things. So obviously we get a lot of people asking, how does that impact Skillable? Do we use third-party cookies? All those sorts of things. Okay, so the answer to the question is no, we don't. Okay, so ultimately, if you're using things like the TMS, or in most scenarios, if you're using your own LMS, it's not going to impact you. Okay, however, not every scenario that's true for. So sometimes people are not familiar with what a third-party cookie is. Okay, so let's just clarify that to start with. So the thing to think about a cookie is they allow like a website to track, store information about you. So you think you go to a website, okay, and that website's got adverts on it. Okay, so when you're on the website, so let's just say shopping.com, okay, there'll be cookies that shopping.com put on your local disk. Okay, and they would be first-party cookies. Basically, you're on the website shopping.com, the cookies have come from shopping.com. Okay, however, what they might be doing is they might be renting advertising space to other companies. So other companies are actually putting bits of their website or content in the page. So that page, even though it says shopping.com, it's going to have content from other websites on it. Okay, those other websites are going to want to put cookies on your machine as well, so they can track you. So now you've got a cookie from another company, another website, stored as part of shopping.com. So that now becomes a third-party cookie. So the cookie is not related to the primary owner of the web page that you're looking at. Okay, so the scenario where that comes into play for Skillable is if you're using a third-party learning management system, LXP system, okay, and you integrate with us. When you integrate with us, you've normally got a number of options that when you launch a lab, what does that LMS do? And that LMS might, for example, open a new browser window. Okay, so effectively the Skillable lab runs in the new browser window. It might put it in a new tab in the existing browser window. Okay, both of those, the actual window is Skillable, or actually it's the labclient.labondemand.com. Okay, So all the cookies we put on the machine are first party because they belong to labondemand.com. The problem you have, and this is where you would need to be conscious of this, is if you've configured your LMS to do what's called iframing. So iframing is the ability to embed one website inside another one. So effectively, you've got your LMS page, okay, and then inside there, you've got the lab client running. So it didn't open a new tab, it didn't open a new browser, it ran it in the existing window. So when you actually look at the top of the URL, it would say whatever your LMS website is, but what you can see inside the window below would be a Skillable lab. We generally don't recommend people iframe, just from a usability point of view, because ultimately when you're running something like a lab, especially if it's got, you know, a VM and some instructions, the more screen real estate you've got, the better the user experience. And of course, when you iframe, you're putting a window inside a window, so therefore by definition you're contracting the screen real estate the user has access to. So the idea with this, if you are iframing, you're going to have the parent window, which is going to be the name of your LMS, and then you're going to have labondemand.com inside that. So at that point, our cookies become third-party cookies. Okay. So if you are in that scenario, you need to contact us for a feature again that we're going to push out next week. So it's going to be out plenty of time before the browsers change, so that we can make a change to your configuration so that you don't get an access denied message, because that's what you'll see, basically an access denied type message. So I'm just going to go across hopefully to my browser window somewhere. So this is just one of our test systems. Okay, so this is not our live system because the feature's not in our production system yet. And this is an API endpoint for a fictitious company that we use for testing. So effectively, we now have a new option in here. Okay, so if I hopefully edit this, okay, and it's going to ask me to sign in again. Okay, and we've added a new field. So on the advanced page, we now have a new box, basically trusted parent iframe domains. Okay, so what we need is we need to know that when you're in the LMS, what does that URL say at the top? You know, so just imagine, for example, it might say skillable.blackboard.com because we're using the Blackboard LMS. What does that say? Okay. If you're in a scenario where you use more than one LMS, you know, so for example, you might have an LMS for internal training, an LMS for external training, but it's both Blackboard. They've just got different branding, different looks and feels. Okay. So they've got different URLs. We can put them both in there. No problems at all if needed. Okay. We can put multiple URLs in there. So just to bear that in mind, if you are iframing, then that's something you're going to need to contact us so we can get it updated for you. Okay, so we'll be able to do that basically sort of from the end of next week. Okay, cool. Okay, so before I just move away from these, there is another new thing that I want, or an updated thing that I want to talk about, but it's not technical. So I just wanted to just pause, see if anyone's got any questions that they want to ask about any of those technical new features. No hands have gone up and stuff. Cool. Okay, no problems. If anyone thinks of anything, then obviously you can always call back to that. Okay, so something I'd like to point out is something that's been significantly updated. Okay, so just to sort of back up a little bit, quite often at Skillable, we have themes for the year, okay? And 2024, one of our core themes for the year is enablement. We want customers to do more, do it faster, do it better, and so on. So enablement is a key thing of one of our themes. Okay, and ultimately, you know, there are lots of things that, you know, people do on our platform which is really good, really powerful. But what we want to do is we want to enable all customers to do that. So straight away, if we think about January, script library, that's a thing that we've done already this year. The second thing, and actually, so Andrew's actually put in there the fact that we're like improving our documentation and things. I'm sure someone like Andrew and maybe Chris Leeson would be another great example on here of people that think about our old documentation. And when you're trying to learn our product, our old documentation was not really very good. It was very much a case of we would tell you what an option did, and what the choices were, but you'd never get really any why would I use that? What's it going to do for me? That's funny. Have you seen other companies documentation? And what we really want to do is we really want to change that. Okay, and documentation is one of the bits. Okay, so you might have noticed it went live last week. We've got our new documentation site. So just going to jump across to a browser window because there's a couple of things. I've got a couple of action items for you with respect to our new documentation site. Okay, so what I'm going to do is plus button there. So if I just go across to the doc site, okay, you will see the initial screen is different to my screenshot because we added this new component in here. I'll talk about that in a moment. So Skillable Studio is what we do the lab developer workshops. It's our authoring platform, so that's the help in there. Skillable Labs, think of that as user help. So for help for how to use the lab client, those sort of things. Skillable Connect, that's our API documentation. Okay. Skillable TMS, so our LMS. Skillable Insights, our reporting platform. A lot of you attended the Skillable Insights Lab Developer Workshop last November and got onboarded and so on. And then we have the Skillable Marketplace, which I'll talk about in a bit more detail in a moment. In reality, it doesn't really matter which one you click on, you can get to the other one. It just drops you in at a certain point in the hierarchy. But the first thing I want to point out, for those that used our old documentation, we often found people struggled with search. Okay, our search wasn't very good. Okay, so first of all, search is fixed. So just think about, just talking about the iframing thing. If I just type in iframing here, you can actually see, it's actually a far more thorough search than we ever had before. Takes me straight to the documentation relevant to that. So this page is the one that's going to be updated with that change that I just talked about when we make the change in production. So you will see this page will change next week. Okay, it's been written, we're just waiting for the platform update. Thank you, that's really great, Andrew. Thank you. Oh, I'm going to pass that back to the documentation team because as you can imagine, documentation is not the most fun thing, and it's been hard for a lot of people. So I'm going to feed that back. One of the things, so I said, got an action for yourselves. One of the things that we would really like. So we've now got a more dedicated document team now. Okay, so we've actually got more people focused on this. Some of the documents in here are just the old ones, and we're just working our way through them. Okay, so we would absolutely love you to rate documents. Obviously, if you find it useful, brilliant, let us know. But actually, what's sometimes more important, if it's wrong, if there's stuff missing, if it didn't help you the way you thought it was, let us know. Okay, and we will fix it. We will absolutely fix it. Okay, this is, as I say, a big driver for 2024. Okay, but just to give you an example of sort of some of the different ways that we're going into the documentation and things that we're doing differently. If I, for example, go to Skillable Studio, okay, we're organizing this in a better way. We used to have a terminology document before. I don't know if any of you ever found our terminology document. Ultimately, myself and when I was a solutions engineer and a couple of other SEs wrote it, okay, but you had to know where it was, or you was never going to find it. So it was pretty pointless, really, that sort of thing. But actually, just things like, again, back to enablement, things like, building your first lab. We never had guidance like this before. Okay, this document's not perfect. I wrote this one, and I've got to fix it a little bit, but it's accurate. It's just not as easy to digest as I would like it to be. I'll show you why in a moment. But ultimately, this literally lays down everything you've got to do to build that first lab. Okay, just because I've got to let you know, the reason it's not perfect is I need to sort that flowchart. That's a bit scary for a first. For a first, how do I build a lab? But that actually, so take again some of the seasoned people here for using our platform. That flowchart I think you'll find really valuable because it actually sort of talks you through all the decision points for working out what your environment's going to be. Yeah, and then actually we've got a really useful how to build your first lab. So these are the actual steps for building your first lab. You know, so basically I've actually boiled building a lab down to 4 steps now, 4 things you've got to do. So hopefully you're starting to see that, you know, we're trying to do these sorts of things. You know, the documentation is just a lot better in terms of we're telling you when it's updated, how long it should take to read, and all those sort of things. So please give us feedback on this because we want to make it better, and because certainly it's the year of enablement. You know, if you can't do something, we need to resolve that. Okay. As I say, it's not finished yet. We're still working on it, but hopefully, you know, you find that it's a much better place to be than we were before. So the last thing I just want to talk about, just for sort of 3 or 4 minutes, because some of you might never have heard about this, is Skillable Marketplace. Okay, so just because you're going to see it a little bit, I just thought I'd take a couple of minutes to talk about it. So this isn't new. In terms of we've had it for a little while now, 7-8 months. However, it was for a very specific purpose. So unless you was a customer in that area, you wouldn't have known about it. So what is it, and sort of what's the idea? So the idea is it's a mechanism that content providers can advertise their courses, and people can come and buy their courses. That's it in a nutshell. That's the idea for the marketplace. Okay, even though we've had it for a few months, we're still quite new to this, so our expansion of it's quite slow at the moment. So where did this come from? So the whole idea of this originally was related to Microsoft. So Microsoft have official course content, and they have official labs and all those sort of things. So I used to be a Microsoft certified instructor. So I remember, if I go back a few years ago, you used to go to a company called Avato, Bertelsmann was their other name, and you would buy courses. So you're going to teach something like Windows Server, you would go there and you'd buy the courses. That would give you a key so you could get the manuals, so you could give the manuals to the students because the manuals were electronic, and it would give you a mechanism to buy the labs if you wanted to as well. Okay. Now, Skillable has been an authorized lab hoster. If you bought the labs through Avato, okay, they would effectively give you a key that you could then give to your students, and they could then come to the Skillable TMS and they could sign up and get access to the labs. Okay, we of course had a lot of customers that bought labs from us directly from Microsoft as authorized education partners, and they didn't use that process. What happened last year was Microsoft decided it was going to give all of its course content away for free. Okay, so all those courses that effectively companies like I used to work for had to go and pay for, okay, they were putting on their Microsoft Learn site and they were giving them away for free. But what they weren't doing was giving people hands-on labs. Okay, so for a lot of the customers that dealt with us directly, they could just carry on buying the labs. They would get the course manuals for free. Life was good. However, there was a load of small customers out there that relied on buying labs through Avato because they didn't do that many. So effectively, the Skillable Marketplace came about so that those smaller organizations could still come to us and buy labs and still access them through the TMS the same way as they always have. So that's why most people haven't heard of it, because it was geared to very niche scenario. Okay, the reason we put it on our documentation now, and the reason we're talking about it a bit more, is we've now expanded this to a second vendor. Okay, so we're actually going to be announcing shortly the ability to buy Citrix Labs. So again, the first set of content is going to be for Citrix training partners only. So again, it's going to be a bit of a closed shop. Okay, but there is going to be a Citrix self-paced option coming as well. So if you want to just go and buy Citrix Labs, you'd be able to do that. The other thing is we're also now starting to enable this for our other customers that want to be able to sell their content through this mechanism as well. So if you work in an organization and you're creating labs and you're selling, but you wanted to allow other people to buy them, we're starting to enable that. So that's why you're going to start seeing Skillable Marketplace pop up in a few other places. Okay, so I just wanted to sort of let everybody know about that.